You ever think about how one book can just spark these huge conversations, like across different generations, different parts of the world even?
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
kind of wild. And today, we're diving into one of those books, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
A lot of you wanted us to really unpack this book, why it stayed so powerful, what its main ideas are, all of that. So that's the plan for today.
Sounds good.
This novel came out in 1960, but it's set way back in the 1930s in the American South. And it really struck a chord with people by exploring, those really core human things.
Mm,
Growing up, figuring out other people and how to fight for what's right, even when you're surrounded by, well, a ton of injustice,
mm,
especially racial inequality.
right. Yeah, definitely.
Now, for anyone listening who wants to get the key points, the important stuff about this book without having to, spend hours reading, think of this deep dive as your shortcut.
Okay.
We're pulling out the most important insights and some of the more surprising stuff about how this book came to be and the impact it's had. Oh, and we've got a really cool angle for this deep dive. We're looking at some analysis by Dr. Jesvant Rothen. His work's meant for graduate students, so it's pretty deep.
Wow.
He gives this really interesting perspective on how the book's relevant all over the world, not just in America and particularly in India.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay,
Okay.
so first things first, where did this whole world of Maycomb, it's the town in the book, where did it even come from?
Well, Harper Lee based it a lot on her own experiences. She grew up in Alabama, same as the setting of the book. And get this, her father was a lawyer who defended black men in court. Sound familiar?
Atticus.
Yeah, exactly. A big inspiration for Atticus Finch right
Yeah.
there. And, Truman Capote, the writer,
Yeah, sure.
they were close friends growing up. And that friendship, all those childhood adventures they had, that's basically Dill, Scout's friend in the book.
Oh, wow. So it's all drawn from real life in a
A
way.
lot of it, yeah.
It's amazing how this book just exploded in popularity, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it won a Pulitzer Prize in 1961, sold millions and millions of copies,
It's huge.
and it's still taught in schools all over the place.
Definitely.
Do you think all that success, made it hard for Harper Lee to write anything else? There was this whole one book wonder thing going on.
I can see how that would be tough, for sure. But actually, she did publish another book much later, Go Set a Watchman.
Oh, yeah, right.
It wasn't exactly a sequel. It was more like an early draft of To Kill a Mockingbird, actually.
Huh?
And it showed some of the characters, especially Atticus, in a bit of a different light than the final version of Mockingbird,
It makes you think, how characters evolve in a writer's mind over time.
for sure.
And then, of course, there's the movie, the 1962 one with Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
He was amazing as Atticus.
Really embodied the character.
He even won an Oscar for it. And from what I've read, Harper Lee herself really liked his portrayal, which you don't always see with book-to-movie adaptations.
That's pretty rare, actually.
Yeah, it is. But, To Kill a Mockingbird hasn't exactly been universally loved.
Oh, right.
It's actually been quite controversial over the years.
Mhm.
Some schools even tried to ban it.
Really?
Yeah, because of the language, especially those racial slurs and, the tough subjects it deals with.
I see.
It's funny, though, because a lot of people argue that those are the very things that make the book so powerful. It doesn't try to hide the reality of what the South was like back then in the 1930s.
Right.
Speaking of which, it's important to remember the historical context here. The story takes place during the Great Depression, so there's a lot of poverty and hardship.
Yeah, tough time.
And of course, you've got Jim Crow laws, all those laws that enforced segregation and discrimination against black people.
Right. Yeah.
Now, this is where Dr. Rathod's analysis gets really interesting. He points out that the main themes of the book, that whole search for justice and the idea equality for everyone, they resonated way beyond the U.S. South.
Oh, interesting.
These ideas have actually inspired writers and thinkers in India, too, in their own struggles against injustice. So it's not just an American story, it's a human story.
That's really cool how it crosses all those borders.
Totally. Okay, so let's actually get into the story itself.
Okay.
We're dropped right into Maycomb, Alabama. It's the 1930s. It seems like a pretty quiet, sleepy southern town. And we see everything through the eyes of a 6-year-old girl,
Yeah, Scout.
Jean-Louise Finch. But everyone calls her Scout. She's our narrator, which is really clever.
How so?
Because Lee can show us how prejudice looks through the eyes of someone who's still so innocent.
Yeah, I see.
Scout feels the impact of injustice before she even really understands it.
That makes sense.
So we meet Scout, her older brother Jem, and their dad, Atticus. He's this incredibly wise and moral guy.
The moral compass of the story.
Definitely. And of course, there's Calpurnia, their black housekeeper.
Hmm.
She's not just someone who helps around the house, though. She's like a rock for the family, a really important figure in their lives. And remember those summer days when Dill comes to visit?
Oh, yeah, Dill?
Those three kids with their imaginations running wild. That's such a big part of the first part of the book, especially their fascination with this mysterious neighbor, Boo Radley.
Right, the recluse.
They're obsessed with getting him to come out of his house, and there are all these creepy stories and rumors swirling around him. It's like their own little spooky mystery.
It adds this whole other layer to the story.
But then things take a much more serious turn. Atticus agrees to defend Tom Robinson, this black man who's been falsely accused of attacking a white woman, Mayella Ewell.
Heavy stuff.
And that decision completely changes things for Scout and Jem. They suddenly have to deal with the very real prejudice in their community. People being mean to them, excluding them, just because their dad is doing what he believes is right.
Tough for kids to understand.
Yeah, but Atticus tries to teach them how to stay calm, to understand people, and to treat everyone with respect, even those who are treating them badly. It's a big lesson.
It is.
And the Ewells, they're really important to the story, too. They're poor, kind of rough around the edges, but they're white. And just because of that, people believe them over Tom, even though they're clearly not very trustworthy.
Wow.
Yeah, it shows just how strong those racial biases are in Macomb.
It's a lot for those kids to take in.
It is. And then we get to the trial, which is like the heart of the book.
Right.
It's not just about what happens in the courtroom. It's about like the whole town being forced to face its own ugliness.
It's like everything comes to a head.
Exactly. Now, Atticus, he does a brilliant job defending Tom. He tears apart the prosecution's case and it basically proves that Tom couldn't have done it. He even suggests that Mayella's own father, Bob Ewell, might be the one who actually hurt her.
Makes you think about why Mayella would accuse Tom in the first place.
Right. And it turns out she was probably just lonely and, she reached out to Tom for a bit of human connection, which was a huge taboo back then.
White woman talking to a black man, yeah.
But even with all the evidence Atticus presents, the jury, which is all white, finds Tom guilty.
No.
It's devastating, and it really shows how deeply prejudice can twist people's minds, how it can make them ignore facts and logic.
It's heartbreaking.
Totally. And the tragedy continues because Tom, he tries to escape from prison and ends up getting shot and killed.
Oh, man.
He must have felt so hopeless, trapped by a system that was rigged against him.
Yeah.
And then Bob Ewell, he shows just how nasty he really is.
What happens?
He attacks Scout and Jem as they're walking home from a Halloween pageant. It's like revenge for Atticus, humiliating him in court.
Wow. So he's still holding a grudge.
Big time.
Right.
But then something really unexpected happens. Boo Radley, the guy they were so scared of his kids, he comes out of nowhere and saves them.
Really?
Yeah. He actually scabs Bob Ewell in the fight. It's like out of all the people they thought would protect them, it's the one they were most afraid of.
Crazy how things turn out.
And then Scout, she finally meets Boo face to face. And she realizes he's not this monster everyone made him out to be. He's actually kind of shy and gentle.
Huh.
Yeah, it totally breaks down all her preconceived notions.
Wow, she's learning so much.
She is. And then the sheriff, he decides to say that Bob Ewell fell on his own knife, basically covering up for Boo.
Protecting him.
Exactly. And that's when Scout has this big realization. She says it's like killing a mockingbird.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's about protecting the innocent, the vulnerable. It's like the central idea of the book.
I get it.
And the story ends with this really moving scene where Scout stands on the Boo Radley's porch and sees the world from his perspective.
That's powerful.
It's like she's finally grown up,
Yeah.
She understands things in a much deeper way.
Yeah.
So what makes this book so important, so relevant even today? I mean, racism and injustice are obviously huge themes. The way Tom Robinson is treated, how the legal system fails him completely, it shows just how powerful prejudice can be.
Right.
And Dr. Rathod, he points out that this isn't just an American problem. He says that readers in India, they might see connections to the caste system or other forms of discrimination where people are judged based on who they are, not what they do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's that whole coming of age theme. We watch Scout and Jem go from these kind of naive kids to, well, people who are starting to see the world's complexities, the good and the bad.
It's a universal experience, isn't it?
Totally. And courage, Lee shows us so many different kinds of courage.
Oh, yeah.
Atticus sticking to his principles even when everyone's against him.
Yeah.
Mrs. DuBose fighting her addiction. And even Boo Radley coming out of his shell to help those kids.
Right, different ways to be brave.
It's not always about being loud or slashy. It's about doing what you think is right, even when it's hard.
Definitely.
And then there's empathy, which is so important in this book. Remember what Atticus tells Scout to walk in someone else's shoes?
Yeah.
It's all about trying to see the world through other people's eyes, to understand them, even if they're different from us.
It's like trying to connect with people on a deeper level.
Exactly. And we see that with Tom, with Boo, even with Mayella in a way.
You're right.
And then there's this big idea of innocence, symbolized by the mockingbird.
Right, yeah.
Tom and Boo, they're like those mockingbirds. Innocent people who are hurt by the cruelty and ignorance around them.
It's sad, but like a powerful message.
Yeah, it is. And finally, there's that whole idea of family and community. The Finches, they're so close, so loving, and Calpurnia is a huge part of that. It's such a contrast to the rest of Maycomb, where prejudice is so strong that it breaks down the community.
Shows how important it is to have people who support you, who love you for who you are.
Yeah. And the book touches on so many other issues that are still relevant today, like the racial inequality of the Jim Crow era, how Black people had almost no rights. It makes you think about the inequalities that still exist today, maybe in different forms.
Yeah.
And how about class and poverty?
Oh, right.
The Ewells, they're poor and looked down upon even within the white community, but they still have more power than Tom simply because they're white. It shows how complicated these social dynamics can be, how race and class are all tangled up.
Definitely.
Makes you think about how those things, wealth, status, all of that still affect people's lives.
For sure.
And the role of education. Scout hates going to school, but she learns so much from Atticus at home.
Right.
It's not just about facts and figures. It's about thinking for yourself, being fair, being kind.
Yeah.
Shows that real education happens everywhere, not just in a classroom.
Totally.
And then there's the fear of the unknown. Boo Radley is a great example of that. People are terrified of him because they don't know him. They believe all these rumors. But when Scout finally gets to know him, she realizes he's actually a good person.
It's like judging a book by its cover.
Exactly. It reminds us not to be afraid of what we don't understand, to be open to people who are different from us.
Makes sense.
And finally, there's that conflict between doing what you think is right and following what society tells you to do. Atticus, he knows defending Tom is the right thing to do, even if the whole town thinks he's wrong.
Tough choice.
It is. And it makes you think, like, when is it okay to go against the grain, to stand up for what you believe in, even if it means going against tradition?
It's something we all have to think about.
For sure. So to wrap things up, To Kill a Mockingbird, it's so much more than just a story about the South in the 1930s.
Right.
It's about these universal truths that we're still grappling with: justice, empathy, growing up in a world that isn't always fair.
And it's really stayed with people all these years.
It has. It's about Harper Lee's own experiences, the impact the book had when it first came out, its complex themes, its message about society, and how those messages resonate with people all over the world, like Dr. Rathwood was saying.
Absolutely.
It's a book that leaves you thinking, you know? Like, if we think about the mockingbirds in our own lives, the innocent people who need our protection, what does it really mean to stand up for them?
Yeah.
What does it take to be truly courageous, truly empathetic? It's a question we should all be asking ourselves.